every single guy that struggles in dating, that struggles to get the women they want, that struggles to have a sex life that they want, typically the number one thing that I found that causes that is an inability to create sexual tension. There's a lot of different factors, but that's usually the one common thread between all the guys that are just not getting the results that they want in dating. Is just being terrible with tension. Because most guys, they play it safe. Massively. Right? They're so preoccupied with not making women uncomfortable, with keeping the peace, with being respectful, with not overstepping anybody's boundaries, that they have no power when they interact with women, if they even interact with women in the first place. Okay? Now, this tendency to play it safe, to avoid, to keep everybody happy, sometimes comes from different things, right? Some of it can come from childhood, from trauma. Maybe you grew up in like an abusive household where your parents are very violent. There's a lot of yelling, screaming, just crazy shit going on when you were young, and you saw that violence and you kind of took on the role of the peacemaker, where you felt like you needed to kind of protect everybody and just diffuse all that tension as much as possible to not rock the boat any more than it already is. For some of it might come from just social conditioning, right? Like there's so much influence from the media and from politics and just bullshit on social media saying like, you know, don't trigger women, like women don't want this, like don't approach women, this is creepy, that's weird. So the number one thing I hear from guys that come to me is that they feel like they're stuck. Like on one hand, they want to go out, they want to meet women, they want to approach, they want to step into their power, be the guy that actually is attractive, goes for what he wants, but then there's also this kind of invisible force that pulls them back and causes them to like feel stuck and feel trapped. These thoughts of like, I don't want to be creepy, I don't want to be weird, I don't want to, you know, upset anybody, I don't want to get the police called on me. I mean, there's extremes to how bad these thoughts can get and these emotions of, you know, avoidance and fear and anxiety around this stuff. But I found that it affects a lot of guys. It affects like 90% of guys. And the biggest problem around this is that when you are controlled by these thoughts and by these tendencies of playing it safe, you're at the effect with women. They have the power, they're at the cause, and you're reacting to them. Because you're basically walking on eggshells, watering down your personality, trapping yourself in your head, and not allowing yourself to really go for what you want as a man, right? Think back like hundreds of years ago where there were no dating apps, where nobody was hiding behind screens. Nobody was numbing themselves out to porn or to OnlyFans. How would we go about meeting women? The only way was to go out and put yourself out there and be confident, right? And we've lost that. As I said, a lot of it is due to this childhood trauma that a lot of people experience. Some of it is social conditioning, some of it is kind of a fusion between the two. But it's a massive issue. Like a huge, huge issue is that guys are terrible with tension. Instead of looking for it, seeking it out, stepping into it, they diffuse it and avoid it at all possible costs. Right? And this extends, by the way, outside of just dating. I just find that guys are avoiding discomfort at all costs, shirking responsibility, trying to make their life as easy as possible instead of looking for challenge and for hardship and for things that they can really step into that force them to grow, right? It's a real big problem, but it specifically comes out in dating, this avoidance of tension, and it causes a lot of guys to get no sex, no dates, no intimacy, no results. It's the number one thing, okay? So, how do we solve this? How do we actually develop this ability to start stepping into tension and to stop being at the effect with women, but rather take your power back, and become the cause. There's two parts to it. And one of them is completely missed by every single dating course or material out there. I haven't really found anything around the second part of it. So there's two pieces. The first is the tension piece, right? So you guys got to realize that anything that's going to move the needle forward in terms of success with women requires you to step into tension, approaching, stating your intentions, asking for the number, asking for the Instagram, telling a girl that you find her attractive, kissing her, taking her hand and leading her somewhere, inviting a girl to come home with you. All of these things require you to step into tension. Without that ability to walk into that tension, into that little bit of discomfort that's there, you're not getting anywhere. You're going to stay exactly where you are right now. However, though, I do want to put this, is that everything that I found out there in the dating industry that somewhat worked for me a little bit, but it didn't get me exactly where I wanted to be, just completely focuses on just that one component of like, push, go for it, be bold, be confident, right? All this like really action-oriented stuff, which is great, by the way. That's the masculine side of mastering sexual tension, and it's very necessary. But there's another piece to this that I find that everybody misses. And it took me a really long time to figure this out and to then master. And that's the feeling part. That's the feminine part of sexual tension. So there's always that yin and yang. One can't exist without the other, right? There needs to be the masculine, there needs to be the feminine. And within this very powerful concept of building sexual tension with women, there needs to be a masculine side to it, which is action. And there needs to be a feminine side to it, which is feeling and presence. Okay? So what does that mean? What does that really look like? And how can you guys apply this when you're working with our models this weekend or when you're out approaching? So it's not enough to just push, right? It's not enough to just, hey, what's your name? My bad, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Hey, I saw you. I think you're so attractive. It's not enough to just do that, right? There needs to be a feeling and a presence behind it, a congruence behind it that allows the woman to feel the impact that you're making on her. Okay? Now, the way that this works is that to really master sexual tension, we could talk about all the more tactical stuff like, how do I touch her? How to hold eye contact? How do you speak in a confident voice? How close should you get to a woman? I could give you all this more logical, analytical stuff, but none of it is going to work if you guys aren't feeling it. Everything needs to be felt with your body. And that's the secret to building sexual tension. So your body tells you, how much tension can I actually handle? When do I need to pull back a little bit? When do I need to push forward a little bit? And essentially where you guys want to be is you want to find your edge. So like, for those of you who work out or go to the gym, you all have like a 1 rep max, right? Or a 3 rep max, right? You kind of know how much weight am I able to lift, where it's like, I'm fucking pushing it. I'm going to my max, but I'm not going to get injured. And for the guys that are all push, right? They're just like forcing themselves to go take action with women and to do different things. They're the guys that are basically like, are skinny, but then they're picking up the hundreds. And they're trying to lift the hundreds, right? That's how you hurt yourself. But also at the same time, if you're wanting to get in shape, you're also not going to pick up like 5-pound pink weights and just lift those for the rest of your life, right? So you need to find what I call the sweet spot between challenge and feeling. So how much can your body handle? How much tension can your body handle? How much pressure and discomfort can your nervous system handle? You want to go right to the edge. So you want to find the edge where David Deida has a book called The Way of the Superior Man where he talks about this. Is like you want to be pressing your lips against your fears, not going farther than them, but not pulling back. You want to be right at that precipice right? Where you're feeling everything. You're experiencing and embracing every little emotion, every little bit of anxiety, every little bit of shame, every little bit of whatever that shit that you feel inside that comes up. And you want to fully sit in it and fully be in it and let her see how she's impacting you and not push, but also not pull back and also not numb yourself out. You want to be right there with as much as you can handle. And that's going to be different for everyone, right? So you don't want to be comparing yourself to anybody else. Everybody can handle a different amount of tension. And it's all based on your nervous system, right? So some people, they're untrained. They're out of shape in terms of handling tension. So they need to start small. For other guys, they've built up the muscle and they've got a lot of tension that they can handle. They can maybe flirt pretty intensely and dirty talk with women when they meet them and say very sexual things, and women love that shit. But then another guy comes in and he tries to do the same thing. He tries to make some sexual joke and women are creeped out completely. Why is that? Well, it's not because of how you look or your height or some other bullshit. It's because how much can you actually handle, right? If you're trying to use a joke that somebody else used and that guy feels good in his body as he says it, and another guy is like this, right? He's like clamping up and tensing up, and he's clearly super uncomfortable with it. It's not going to work. So that's why everything that we're talking about here is about congruence, and it's about feeling, right? It's about finding that sweet spot. And this, by the way, as I said, applies to everything, to business, to sports, to life in general, is finding that sweet spot where you get into flow, right? Because if you're going too far, you have anxiety, right? And I'm sure you guys have experienced that, is that you almost like go too far in the conversation. You start saying things that are like a little bit past what you're comfortable with, and you're like, holy shit. And then you start to feel that crippling anxiety, and then you self-sabotage. You either self-eject or the girl just gets a weird vibe from you. That's happened with me so many times. You guys have no idea how many dates, how many approaches I fucked up because I was just pushing too hard. And then there's other times where you guys are like clearly just being a pussy. You're clearly just playing safe. You're clearly holding back, and you know it and she knows it. And a part of you even feels bored, right? It's like, what am I doing? So it's about finding that sweet spot. That's how you hit that flow, right? And as I said, there's a lot of ways that you can build tension. I'll do some demos with you once the models get here on how to do this correctly, how to find that sweet spot. But basically, there's already tension between you and a woman the moment you see her, if you're attracted to her, right? Immediately there's tension. Now, there is ways to pull that tension back and decrease it. You could turn away, you could put your head down, you could do all this like self-defensive behavior where you cross your arms, you avoid eye contact, right? You can do all that stuff, and that's going to minimize the tension. Because that's what you're doing. You're like, I can't handle this, I can't handle this, I can't handle this. And she sees it, by the way, right? And it turns her off. Or once you get good, you could start to turn it up. You get closer to her, you could look her directly in the eyes, you could touch her hand, you could smile, you could drop more into your body, you could say something sexual or flirty, right? So there's ways to turn that tension up too. But this is how to get your power back, right? It's about understanding this dynamic of action versus presence, right? Feeling versus pushing, and calibrating it to your body, and then learning how to get better and better and better with it, so that ultimately puts you at the cause instead of the effect, right? So the best way to start actually is like when you guys are working with our models, if you can just look at her and relax your body and just let yourself feel nervous. Let yourself feel that tension come up and not hide, not avoid, not clamp up. That's the starting point. Once you get good with that, you can now take action. Okay? Cool. Thank you guys.